Yo, what's up? It's Jimmy on from Glitchy Thumbs. Today, we're building the mechanic in Buildbox for character 1.3. The character that looks like Hershey's Kisses with a face. Don't really have a nickname for him. If you guys have a nickname, leave it below in the comments. Possibly might use it in a game, but we're gonna build the prototype in this video, so let's go. First thing I do is open up Buildbox, go to my folder, drop in the FBX for character 1.3, lowered the cube by putting a -1 in the y-axis, rotated the view, and then I clicked the ground and changed the ground type from grass to no ground. For the cube, I changed the physics from dynamic to kinematic. That way the cube stays in place. We're planning to use it as our platform. For character 1.3, I click edit in the scene, change the outline from white to black, uncheck receive shadow, and click assign, and then hit play to test everything out. So far we have the nice idle animation that we made in Blender, but there's two keyframe animations, which I'm not sure why, but I checked the second one for loop because we want the animation to loop. The second one seems like it wasn't the correct one. I need to change the view. I click the camera and move the view with my mouse using the right click and the middle mouse button. We're trying to get the character directly in the middle. I click camera and you can change the values on the right side if you need to. The numbers are going to be all over the place. If you want whole numbers, you should start entering them here. It'll be good practice for yourself as well. It's entirely up to you, however you want to do it. If you like everything like messy with a bunch of decimals, that's fine too. Just do what works for you. I do plan to look into different camera views for myself. I think that's a good idea. I think I mentioned that in the previous video or one of the videos, to start working on different camera views and saving that as a template and then using that in the future for any future prototypes or future game. That might come in handy when building these prototypes for a bunch of my new characters. The animation still isn't looping. It's definitely not the second animation that's in the FBX file. For sure it's the first one. You can see now the animation loops. He does a little in and out and it looks pretty cool already. Super creepy, but I kind of like it. I like all this creepy looking characters. Kind of like he's, you know, breathing in place. I adjust the camera just a little bit more. Definitely want it to be a little bit more precise. I use the middle mouse button to zoom out. We definitely want to save our Buildbox file. What I did was click the previous character's name and then just changed it from 1_2 to 3. Click save. I'm not sure why I'm in Blender again. Oh, if you're wondering where this character came from, if you haven't watched any of the previous videos, this is the reference that I drew in Procreate that I dragged into Blender. That's how I pretty much came up with the 3D model. Looks pretty identical. He definitely looks a little bit too far. I'm zooming in. I click the character and I remove the second keyframe animation because we don't need that. I'm not sure why there was two different animations, or at least in this video. It was probably because of the way I exported it in Blender. I know there's an option in the export that has all actions, and most likely it exported two different keyframe animations. I'm not sure, but that's my thought process on why there was two. For this mechanic, we're going to use the jump node. We're going to make the character jump. I changed the jump force linear in the Y with a jump force of 5 and up with a jump force of 5 as well. For the jump force angular, change this back to none. Click play. You can see as soon as it starts, he jumps to the right. We wanted it to be when the player touches the screen, then character 1.3 will jump. I add a touch node whenever the player touches the screen. Character 1.3 will jump. I play and I tap the screen and he jumps to the right, and he was hovering a little bit over the cube. I click into the character, change the physics from none to dynamic. Now we have to adjust the collision shape for the character. I move it up. The position is normally 1 in the y-axis. You can switch between move, rotate, and scale with 1, 2, 3 on your keyboard. If you press 4, that's also another custom scale that you can use. I'm scaling the collision shape close to around the character. You can experiment with different shapes for your collision shape. It just depends on how you want to build your game, because these are the hitboxes around your character. Whatever the cube interacts with will trigger something in the game. So that can be a death, a power-up, a portal, or some sort of action. That's how this works. You want it to be slightly close to the character, but not too much out. You want to give the player a little bit of leeway. Otherwise, they're going to feel cheated, especially if you have, let's just say, like a dodging game where they're dodging enemies. You want to make it a little smaller than the actual character size. That just gives the impression of sometimes having a near miss, and that's actually more favorable to the player and makes it a little bit more enjoyable. I finished with the collision shape. The reason reason we changed character 1.3 to dynamic is so that we can drag him up. When the game starts, he'll actually fall down, and that's a pretty cool effect. So we hit play, character 1.3 starts at the top, falls down due to gravity, and then has the idle animation in place. I changed it from 5 to 10 instead. I didn't like how he was in the platform when we previewed earlier. You can see that in our collision shape. It's a little bit in the character, but drag it down just so slightly. That's okay for the collision between the character and the platform. It should make sense. If the character lands on the platform, it shouldn't be within the platform. It should be on top of the platform. Hit play again. Now he's actually off the screen, but he falls in. Boom. That's pretty cool. Let's change it to 7 so he's actually visible. Otherwise, the player won't know what's going on and it might seem like a bug. They have to wait too long. Let's try 8. Character 1.3 falls down, hits the platform. I tap the screen to jump. That's perfect. We're making progress. So far, so good for the prototype. I drag character 1.3 to your characters so that we can have the camera follow the character. Every time we touch the screen and jump, it will actually follow. We hit play. Now the camera starts following the character at the top, falls down, touches the platform. We touch the screen and you can see the camera's following the character now in every direction, in the x-axis, the y-axis, the z-axis. But we don't want the camera to follow the character in the y-axis. We changed the follow force in the y-axis from 1 to 0. You can see we have a similar preview from the last time. Character 1.3 falls down, hits the platform. The camera doesn't follow during this portion, but when we touch the screen and the character jumps, then the camera follows the character because the follow force still has a 1 in x-axis. That's perfect. Pretty much what we wanted. The direction of the game is going to be from left to right. In order to change that so that the scene spawns different platforms and objects, I rotated the start 90 degrees. You can do so with the rotate tool or just entering the value on the right side, whichever works for you. I moved it towards the middle of the platform and then to the right, put a -2. I did the same for the end, rotated -90 degrees, moved it to the right, moved it to the same row to the start. The space between the start, the platform, and the end is essentially the kill space where the character can fall through. If you drag that closer, the ditches will be shorter. If you drag it further out, the ditches will be longer. Since we want to spawn more platforms, I duplicate the start scene. This is going to be the first level, but the scenes are being randomized at the moment, so it will just randomize scene 1 infinite amount of times. That way we have an endless prototype to test at the moment. That's all we pretty much need to get an idea of how this will work. The character 1.3 falls down due to gravity, hits the platform. I tap the screen, he jumps to the right, and bam, knocks his head off the side of the platform. He couldn't make it, falls down, and dies. Now we know that ditch was a little bit too wide to the right. What we can do is move the platform, change this to a whole number, just so you can start getting a good practice of it. Whole numbers are just easier to remember. I moved the end a space over, hit play to test that. Character 1.3 falls down, and this is the start scene pretty much that we're looking at. When we touch the screen, character will jump. This is scene number 1. We made it onto the platform, but now he slides off and falls down into the ditch, which is what we didn't want. We made it, but he slipped and still died. I don't know. The character just looks hella funny, and I like it. It's entertainment for me, more so because I came up with this character and now I'm actually implementing him. There's this joy feeling of it, seeing, you know, your own characters come alive and you're making them go through these obstacle courses. At least that's how I envision it. I see my own characters going through this type of mechanic. It's like a fun experience. At least it's for me. I don't know. If you guys find it entertaining, you know, leave a comment and let me know. I find it super entertaining. We need to fix this. I click the character. I know in order to get the character to stick more on the platform, you have to adjust the friction. Sometimes if you don't know the definition of certain things in Buildbox, you can just hover over it and you'll see this like tooltip. It's the amount of movement resistance when the asset is sliding across a surface. That's pretty much what we need to adjust. So I changed it to 5 and hit play again. Character 1.3 falls down, hits the platform. I tap the screen, jumps to the right, and stops directly at the end of the next platform. Now he doesn't slide anymore. We're getting closer in the mechanic, which is good. I was curious what changing the friction to a lower number would do. So I changed it to 3. It's pretty much the same. I tap again to see how far you can actually get on the next platform, but nope, bumps his head on the side of the platform again. This time just completely just gets killed in that ditch. I kind of like the physics on the 3D objects. I don't know, it just feels super cool. It feels more realistic with these characters. It just makes them feel a little bit more alive. I mean, I like 2D characters too, but I'm just better at making 3D models, I guess. My brain just works better creating 3D models. I can draw 2D characters and illustrate them, but when it comes down to animation, that's the issue. I have to think, okay, how is this animation going to be for a 2D character that's kind of like flat versus like a 3D character? I can add bones, move it around, and the 3D model deforms around the bones that you're moving, and it creates this kind of seamless movement. That's why I opted more towards the 3D side. It's a little bit more work, but it works for my brain. My brain works faster that way. It's a little bit more in a flow state when I do 3D characters versus when I'm just doing, let's just say, pixel art or just plain old 2D. You just gotta experiment whichever workflow works for you. For me, I've tried both. I've tried pixel art, I tried 2D art, and then I tried 3D art. Definitely 3Ds just works better for me. Now we need to fix the platform, move it just a little bit closer so that he can land directly on top of the platform. Let's move this end so we have a closer ditch and see how that is. We hit play, tap the screen, jumps to the right, and it's almost perfect. He jumps a little bit too far. You can see on the right, since we moved the end a little bit closer, the ditch is very close now. If we tap again, he'll most likely over jump the platform and now lands on the end of the platform. Definitely couldn't hang on, tips over and gets stuck. I think playtesting is pretty fun because you get to see all these different sides to your game. I think it's fun in the beginning, especially in the prototyping phase. We need to move this end portion to the right ever so slightly. We tap the screen to jump. We jump. He makes it on the next platform, makes it on the next platform again and again and again. So far, this is almost perfect, but we want it to be directly on top of the platform. Let's just change the jump force linear in the y-axis to 4.5. You can see before he falls down on the platform, I can touch the screen and he'll jump already on the platform and falls down. So we need to fix that later, but we want to make sure he jumps directly in the middle. That's a little bit too short, but we need to fix the jump in order to fix the jump so that the player can't click until the character hits the platform. We need to add an if collide. For the if collide, we select the platform because we want the character to collide with the platform before they can jump. We need to set the collision group, the cube, to platform. That's how the game engine knows the difference between the objects. We also need a if collide for the jump counter as well to allow the player to tap the screen again. The first if collide connects to reset. Whenever the character lands on a platform, it will reset the jump counter, which we set to 1. The second if collide, we could just duplicate the previous node. The second one, we have it as if the character collides with the platform, player can touch the screen to jump. We actually didn't need 2 if collides. We could just connect that one to both. That's why I deleted it. Hit play. I'm tapping the screen while he's falling. Nothing is happening because he didn't collide with the platform just yet. Now that he did, I can touch it and he jumps to the next platform, and that's what we wanted. We test it again, same thing, touch the platform to jump. Perfect. We need to fix the jump, a little bit too short, change it back to 5. Maybe he needs to jump not as high. I change that to 4.5, hit play. You can see I'm still able to tap the screen as many times. Even if I don't touch the platform, I can still jump. For some reason, the jump limit didn't save. We set it to 1 previously, but I probably didn't click enter. That sometimes happens in Buildbox. If you don't press enter, the values don't save. That's something to remember. That's just how it is. You just gotta work with it. Sometimes you might think, oh, there's an inconsistency, but you just forgot to press enter. There's things you'll come across while working in Buildbox. You just have to remember it for a future reference. That's why I have these videos, because I won't need to remember. I can just refer back to these videos if I forget something that I learned with each character. That's what's useful with recording everything that you do, is so that you actually remember the process that you went through for each character, but also it helps you remember for the next character. You just improve your own workflow workflow and your own process and try to get better each and every time. That allows you to practice better, but also people can actually learn from your mistakes. Everyone just gets better at using these tools. Everybody wins. Character falls down, tap the screen, almost there. But I don't think the x-axis did much. Oh, I guess it did. It's good to always A/B test between two different values. You can definitely see that 5 makes him overjump, but 4.5 is a little bit under. So I did 4.9 and boom, it's perfect. He jumps directly in the middle of the platform. That's what I wanted. For some reason, I'm still having this infinite amount of jumps. So that's a little bit odd because we already set the if collide. I'm tapping the screen and he just jumps infinitely, and the if collide, and this should have worked. I'm testing it without the connection to reset. It definitely works for not being able to press the screen before colliding with the platform. I reconnected again. I was trying to experiment what happens if after you press, the jump is set to 0 in all of the axes, and that's pretty much what happens. When you let go of the screen, he just completely stops. It's because we set 0. That's definitely not what we wanted. I deleted that. I tested again. I'm not sure why he's able to still jump. I go into debug mode. You can see the collision shape touches the platform before the character touches the platform. That's why he's able to jump over and over again. We need to fix that. You can see, look, that outline cube is the collision shape for the if collide. We didn't change that collision shape because we just added that to our character. That's something to make a note about. The start collision shape is a separate collision shape from the if collide collision shape. If you want those two to be the same size, this is actually a pretty good tip, is to adjust them together before working on your character or working on any object. Change your object to have physics and add in an if collide node, and then adjust both of the collision shapes together. Otherwise, you're going to have to change the collision shape separately. That's just a waste of time. I'm editing the collision shape. If we want it to be identical, we have to look at the values. That's what I'm doing. Click the start collision shape, look at the values, and you can type them in or copy and paste, whatever's easier for you. You could take a screenshot and then type in the values if you don't want to click back and forth. There's like various ways you can do it. Now that we have the collision shape identical, when the player touches the screen, he can't infinitely jump like before. It's because the collision shape's fixed now. It needs to collide with the platform in order for the jump counter to reset. So our jump counter is set to 1, so when the player jumps once, they can't jump again until character 1.3 collides with the platform. That's exactly what we want. That's pretty much the game mechanic for character 1.3. Before exporting this to test on my device, I go to File, Project Settings, make sure my bundle ID is in there, and then export. I have an iPhone, so I always export an iOS. I plan to do an Android video at some point, but I just haven't gotten to it. I'm a little bit rusty on the Android side, but definitely will consider it in some future videos. Once the file is saved, you go to your folder, click the character 1.3 new, go to iOS, click the Xcode project with the white thumbnail, click BB player, click signing and capabilities, change the team to your team, make sure your device is connected. Mine is connected to my iPhone, and it'll say build succeeded, and it will install on your device. That's pretty much it. This is a screen recording directly from my iPhone. I'm playing with my device to see how it feels, and you can record it, which is what I do, and replay it or test it as much as you want. See if this is a character you want to expand upon, or if this mechanic is even something you want to work on. You can always save it as a reference if you need to refer back to. That's pretty much it for this prototype. I just needed to get an idea of what I wanted to see with this character and build just something simple. Doesn't have to be a complete game for me. I'm trying to relearn my exact workflow again. That pretty much concludes character 1.3. We built a simple prototype in Buildbox. It's helping me to re-understand my own workflow. I implemented Blender, 3D modeling, and Procreate into my workflow. That changes a lot of the time that I'm spending, where I spend a lot more time creating characters and building them out, but now I have to use those characters and build a mechanic as well in Buildbox. Hopefully you learned a little bit about my process in Buildbox. Hopefully this video helps. If you watch to the end, every character is going to be different. Definitely check them out. Every mechanic, I'm going to try to build a different one if that's possible. You just got to be creative and think about how to use the different nodes, reference from other game mechanics, just come up with something cool. Be sure to check out the previous videos with Ghost, character 1.2, the car guy, and also the next character 1.4. So yeah, if you like this video, please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think. See you in the next Blender video, Buildbox video, whatever I come up with. Yeah, peace out.